Okay. We are live. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this Agent Intelligent episode where we're exploring the future of AI agents in Web3. I'm Francesco. I'm contributing to MotherDAO. I'm also leading developer relation at Consensus. And today we're diving deep into the technology and the vision behind Brahma. Ale, it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome. You want to quickly introduce yourself?
Thank you, sir. We've been connected since a long time, and then we
Long
catch
time.
up in Denver, correct? And then we
Yes.
decided to do this, so appreciate it. I'm Alessandro, one of the co-founders of Brahma, and we've been building in DeFi and on-chain for over 3 years now, so since 2021. And glad to be here.
OG around agents, huh? I think that's great to hear. And yeah, we made it happen after a couple of like weeks. Denver was quite crazy, a lot of like conversation, and we said we definitely need to have you on the live stream because you're not just building this kind of like simple agents, but also like you're definitely like leading the road around kind of like agent infras. Building also Brahma. I definitely want to dive in a little bit like what is Brahma. Tell me like a little bit what is that. But I just want to start with a quick context question, right? What kind of problems you were trying to initially solve within thinking about building Brahma Fi?
So, like always, the same topic, which was, let's say, on-chain complexity, and can abstract part of it away. Started when it started in 21, it was DeFi summer, correct? So all of the protocols were getting more complicated. There were more layers of abstraction on top of them. There were vaults, and we were looking at how the users can open positions quickly, manage them over time without doing everything manually. So we built automation with some active risk management, and we packaged it into a vault similar to like a Yearn vault, that the user could deposit in. And then from there, we looked at how to make this construct more flexible so that people could theoretically abstract away a lot of complexity, a lot of transactions, a lot of manual management. And that evolved into building accounts, Brahma accounts, which are essentially safe accounts with an automation logic that is possible on top of them and some security guardrails so people can automate from their accounts. And then you can see how this is super connected to agents, because whether it's a simple bot that it was before in our automation construct, or an agent taking decision or inputting the logic for an automation, the construct is the same. You need the same type of guarantees, even more security guarantees. And that's how when builders came to us and said, hey, you have this part figured out and we need to connect this to an LLM and make it work on chain, we said, hey, we have it. And we managed to expose it first with the first partner in like a few weeks. And then now it's a full-fledged product that has a much larger vision.
Nice, very cool, very cool. I mean, actually like the way that starts because obviously on the yeah on both the safe and smart account side is something that got kind of like into the flow, and now also like you can think a lot around the agent to agent collaboration and giving those instruments to other agent builders. Okay, let's get into a little bit like around the core functionality. Show me a little bit
Mhm.
like what RAM is all about. I know like you wanted to screen share, you want to show something. Let's get into it, and then I can ask you also other questions.
Sure, I can. So at the core, remember we built accounts using safe smart accounts, and then we built an execution layer, which is basically a relayer, indexers, RPC balancer, or basically everything you need to programmatically execute transactions and make sure they go through. So make sure the gas is paid, make sure the retry logic is there if something gets stuck. You check for slippage. So it's like accounts plus an execution logic. And then this is already like a way to connect and say, hey, I want to swap 5 times in a row, or I want to do a transaction that has multiple steps with smart accounts and execution taken care of. The user has to sign once and it does many actions. That was step one. Now, how do you automate things that have to happen over time without you having to sign as a user each time? You need to build some sort of automation logic, and that's what we built. So this is built with extra modules built on top of Safe, but also we built like a workflow manager, which is something that can pick up something that you want to schedule over time, or that you want to schedule with a trigger and say, oh, Francesco has a risk management bot, which will ping my automation and trigger an exit from my position, correct? Every time that there's a signal. So that's a trigger-based automation. How do we make it happen? We had to take the accounts, the execution, and workflow management, and we had to make sure that there's some security between Francesco, the bot, or Francesco's agent, and the user account that subscribes to this agent or automation. And we had to build a policy logic, like a policy layer. This is something that most custodians had to build internally, such as Fireblocks and the like, because they want to make sure that once the user says, hey, my account can only send money to these whitelisted addresses, there is an extra check in case your, let's say, transaction call data is poisoned or your even front end is hijacked. How do we block this transaction from going out? That same type of logic that usually is done for, I guess, address whitelisting, we extended it to be also programmatic. And a user is able to say, okay, I'm subscribing to this agent by Francesco, which is gonna auto swap every 5 days for me based on some trigger, based on his decision on when to swap, okay? But I know that I only want to swap a certain token to a certain token. I know that it only can last, 30 days. And I know that Francesco agent can only call a swap on maybe Uniswap directly. He cannot use other contracts. And you can put this information into a policy that is attested on chain by the user. When they sign to subscribe to your agent or automation, they are doing multiple things at the same time. They are giving you some approval. They are stamping a policy on this on an automation account that is deployed and has the segregated funds that are needed for the automation or the segregated approval. So all of this allows for what we're building now, and it has been exposed into an SDK that devs can use to handle all of the process from inputting an agentic logic, like an LLM of any type, any framework, any model. And that can in turn trigger any automated execution, but not only for themselves as an agent, but also for users that subscribe to it. And we handle everything on the Brahma side. We handle the user accounts, like embedded smart accounts for each user that onboards. The preferences of the user are individual. So the agent is serving one instance of an agent for each user so that their preferences are unique. And then we also handle the security part so that the agent cannot hallucinate and try to trigger a wrong transaction on the user account.
This is very cool. Yeah,
that's probably the most important thing, I think, that we built ahead of time that now is coming into play. And I can just show you how this is. I mean, from a UI perspective, we have been exposing the Brahma accounts to users for over a year and a half now.
Nice.
It's a pretty large product. It has over 1 billion volume across the full stack. Nice. And the user can, let's say, do normal stuff such as swap by themselves on multi-chain. They can lend directly from Brahma, but they can also access strategies. And these strategies are essentially using the construct and the stack of Brahma. For example, a morpho yield optimizer that automatically rebalances you every day, whenever, checks every day. If there's a better yield, it will rebalance you into that. This is a fixed logic automation, but this can be converted into an agent. And we actually converted it into an agent as well, where the agentic part is at the beginning. You are a user, you don't know fully how morpho works, and you say, I only trust certain curators because my friend told me Gauntlet is good and this other. And you can kind of get a personalized filtered automation through the agent helping you at the beginning. While in some other automations, and I can give you another example, where you have, for example, a TWAP, which inside a Brahma account is a simple automation for now. You can say, sell this token to this other token over 30 days or DCA every month. This can also be made into an agent, and we did it to just showcase what can be done. And the way we did it is like you are able to tell what you want to do to the agent. I want to buy an asset over time. I want to accumulate it, or I want to dump it. So let's say I want to accumulate. I can say which token I want to buy over which time frame. But then I let the agent take decisions on how frequently to swap and how big of a swap each time to make based on market data, if it makes sense. So this is the difference. And this is where we are going now from, let's say, having the users live in our account to access things to a fully abstracted SDK that the user can embed, the dev can embed wherever they want. They don't need to be, onboarding the user into a Brahma account. We have teams that already built abstractions that are exposing their UI, mobile UI, personal UI, and they never have to touch Brahma, correct? But the accounts are running under the hood.
This is nice. This is nice. This is a general question. It's a side question. What do you think are the
Hmm.
main kind of like pain point today for AI agent builders? Because I think like Brahma is solving bunch of those.
I think a lot has been, I mean, from what we get, input
Mhm.
from builders that join our groups, they ping us. It's always either the execution part, which is hard to figure out. How do you give an agent a wallet that then can execute transactions easily, correct? From an LLM spitting out natural language output to getting a proper call data built, the transaction executed. Do you use every layer? Which parts do you have to piece together? There's multiple, let's say, integrations you would have to piece together. And then the natural language intent to path conversion, that's execution. And this is like simple execution. Then there is recurring execution, like a workflow logic, like what I'm showing you for a DCA. That means that the agent also has to keep track of time or a trigger and be able to programmatically trigger transactions. So this becomes more complex. When you want to do it for multiple users, it becomes even more complex to maintain all of these uh, jobs and workflows. And Bram abstracts all of that. And the third part is for sure the security. So the user will always ask you as an agent builder, how does the agent, what if the agent and the model is, let's say, hallucinating? What happens to my account? Am I giving it access to my private key to sign? Is it just building transaction for me and then I have to manually approve it? And with Brahma, you can let the agent automate, knowing that there's a policy layer in between the agent and your account. So even if the agent or the agent builder are malicious or hallucinating, they cannot trigger things they shouldn't on your account, correct? And I can show you here actually, just to give you the idea. So let's say I'm subscribing to this swap agent. As we said, I can tell it I said buy $170 of AI XPT over 6 days. Okay. And I want to tell it maximum you can swap, let's say 30% per trade. It's between 0 and 40 and 30% based on how good you think the market is to accumulate AI XPT. That's the agentic part.
Mhm.
And then I can see that my summary is I want to buy AI XPT over 6 days, and I want to, auto manage slippage, auto manage the trade size and how many trades it's going to take. And now when I click activate the agent, you can see on my page, I'm being shown which security policy is going to be installed on this agent account. And again, stamped on chain, and I'm signing from my key that owns the EOA, the wallet I connected. And therefore, the agent cannot deviate from this policy. Whatever it pushes as a transaction will be scanned by the policy layer, simulated. The state changes are checked. And if it doesn't do something that is in here, it's going to break. So if it tries to call a swap for more than $172 or actually 40, whatever we said per trade, if it tries to swap on any contract that is not this, it will be automatically blocked. So this is a visualized version of the policy that you're installing. But for the user, you sign once and you're essentially spinning up a smart account.
Nice.
You're giving the token approval or depositing the funds, and you're starting the agent automation. You're giving it approval with a certain policy. And you can always revoke it because you own that account and that private key that's signed, that owns the smart account the agent is running in.
Nice, nice. Actually, it's really cool that they need to sign only once, right? Like there is no kind of extra. Yeah, you basically like create this abstraction level that is actually super useful.
And the dev then can put this, like we're discussing with devs, so like some devs don't even want to build a full UI, and they say, hey, make a widget that I can put somewhere, and we have a few of those. And then some devs don't even need to use the Brahma UI. Like what I showed you is just an example of a
Yes.
UI flow for an agent. We have this inside of paid products, agent launchpads, and you will see inside the agent launchpad as a dev, let's say you're building a social agent, and you say, do I want to give it trade capability to my agent since it has a token, right? And you enable
Hmm.
yes. It asks you to sign as the dev creator of that agent
Hmm.
for the account, and that's it. And now that's what we have live with creator bid, and the agent can now call, hey, I want to LP in my own pool. I want to trigger a buyback for 10% of my revenue, and it's all running automatically through Brahma. The creator bid team had to do nothing but set the logic that they wanted to enable in their product,
Oh,
if it
nice,
makes sense.
nice. Yeah, it makes sense. And also the fact that you're not locking in the agent builders is actually quite cool because they can actually decide how they want to move better. I think that's good. Also, like it's very interesting because you're seeing definitely like on the architecture side what is needed, what is the gap, and is it probably is also like a good question like what is your thinking? I mean, first, how you guys like how do you say where like because like has you guys started from also the safe kind of like side, right? Like what were the
Hmm.
kind of like the key technical decision in your architecture, like the lesson learned that you can share around the other builders? Tell me a little bit about those.
I would say, okay, so safe as a decision
Mhm.
was this was back when we started building the Brahma accounts over 2 years ago, and the main point was that do we want to build our own smart wallet to then build extra construct on top of it, which would give us more flexibility, or do you want to use the let's say the most secure open source contract you can, correct, for where the funds of the users are deposited, so they don't have to trust you for that, at least for the base deposits that they do, because Brahma accounts, remember, it's like an actual execution account you use to do everything on chain, not only the automation part. So we have people with like tens of million inside the accounts, and we don't want them to trust us fully for also developing the smart wallet contract. So I would say, as a builder, that was a big decision, which helped us because you are taking something that has very lindy effect and is trusted by people at the contract level specifically, and you're telling them, hey, like there is no change to your safe or to your X wallet, whatever it is, if you import it and use it with Brahma, but we give you extra speed, we give you ways to build transaction and like do things that is so much faster and cheaper for your stuff on chain. That was the beginning. And the automation part and
Mhm.
the sub account plus the module, the things we built for the automated delegation flows, those are on top of the main Bram account, where you can build easy transaction and sign from your safe account, correct? So that made a big difference as well. We have users that use us like large funds or treasuries, and they never touch the automation unless they want to, and they can touch the automation once, and whatever they want to use for the TWAP trade or DCA or the auto rebalancing, that is only exposed to the custom code of Brahma, if it makes sense. The rest is all just execution logic and better execution relayer and stuff. Second thing was, we didn't want to build everything from scratch at the beginning to go to
Mhm.
market,
Mhm.
which was bad for some things. So we started piecing together providers that were existing to solve various part of the challenge. There was nobody on the policy and security layer, so we had to build it ourselves from scratch. But for example, for relaying transaction and keeper management, we used existing solutions. But then the users were kind of upset because that was costing extra to them, correct? Like slower execution and more expensive. And so slowly we started replacing the services and build them in house. That's how we got to this kind of full stack approach, which then enables us now to build, expose it into a single SDK or a single,
Yes.
way for a dev to call and do everything. If we
Yes.
didn't do this, if we didn't spend a year plus to build the infrastructure end to end, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now, if it makes sense. So that was
Yes.
a maybe a good or bad decision, correct? It
No,
cost you
no, no.
money,
This,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
But now you're in a better position, right? Like these are really lesson learned that is worth to share to people. Also, the fact that you learned that part, you're definitely much more architectural from the architecture side, much more reliable for the AI agent builders out there, right? I think
And
that's, yeah,
scalable because we have
exactly.
builders that ping
Yeah.
us and say, can you deploy on Sonic, can you deploy on, like, we have very like many requests of that.
Yes.
And then we say, if I were using a service that is maybe only on free chains, I could never go all EVM, but now we can kind of go all EVM in just a few days. So now we're deploying on BNB chain and Optimism, and
Yes.
it's like in a few days. So with
This
all
is
the
very cool.
services of Brahma, like automation, policy, sub accounts, and all
This
the
is very
inside
cool. Yeah.
services. Yeah.
What do you think are other kind of like architectural gaps right now for agents, apart like the deployment side?
I think it depends where we go. Like, if you think only of on-chain agent, meaning that they are meant to do only things on chain, I think those were the gaps. Like execution, like single execution, automated execution, workflow management, and security policy. There's really no, I don't see any solution to even one of these being like super super solid or like super scalable yet on the market. And then there is, if you think of on-chain plus off-chain agents, then there are other gaps, and we haven't even scratched it because you have to talk to builders that come from Web 2 that would want to connect their agents on chain. So wallet management is one, and you have like a lot of embedded wallets providers like Privy that are great. But how does a builder that doesn't know on chain very, very well take that and connect it to the rest of the services that they might need? I don't know. That's like which gaps are missing there. It depends what the Web2 agent builder will want to do on chain. Is it
Yeah,
only
yeah.
giving a wallet to the agent
Mm.
and pinging a payment with stablecoins, or is there more to it? And we're exploring this. Like we have a few things coming out over the next 2-3 weeks with this off-chain plus on-chain agents that do things like they are able to trigger card payments, that pay subscriptions, take in tips, and do something with it. So we're just exploring, but you don't really know what's gonna come. You can only have hypotheses. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think we kind of like we kind of see the direction also going on a specialized agent way versus a kind of like generalized agent. So specialized agents will need also like services or standards to actually like engage with the other agents. I think with Brahma also like through that you can actually like provide that. So there is a lot
Yes.
of like small things. That's probably like the biggest gap that I see. But also we are very early, right? Like to start speaking
Very
about
early.
frameworks and specs. But I feel like what you're already solving here for agent is a huge kind of like pain, and going through Brahma is actually like super useful. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like we went from this, let's say, purely social agent and content focused agents, like summary and let's say understanding of Twitter and other live events, all the way to now financial services agents, like specialized agents in financial services, like at the beginning of it, because people don't trust it yet. We don't have like scalable examples of why this like 100x's the user experience yet, but because you need good UX to onboard, good I would say guarantees, security guarantees and risk guarantees, and then you also need good agent logic, meaning somebody built something so specialized in a direction, whether it's lending, yield management, or else for purely financial, that people are like, oh my god, this is so much better than an automated vault with a risk curator.
Yes.
And what you mentioned, by the way, I forgot to mention it, but like we're building a lot towards a shared knowledge on top of Brahma between agents. And that's like
Nice.
that's something that takes a bit more time, but with the idea of an agent being able to call another agent even only to ping certain data from it. So if it makes sense, if you're a builder and you come and say to Brahma, I want to build a cross-chain lending agent, like an agent that is really good at figuring if you should rebalance cross-chain to get you the best yield, okay? And then we have specialized agent for each protocol, like Morpho has a specialized agent, which we already built and it's live. Aave will have a specialized agent, Euler as well. So this cross-chain lending agent is specialized in assessing risk and benefit of going cross-chain, but then it will ping individual agents for each protocol to get the best risk-adjusted yield of the day for that risk and coin on Morpho. It won't need to process and think of all of that and be trained, because otherwise there would be a lot of potential for hallucination. So that's how we envision it. You can come with whatever framework you built it with, like it can be LangChain, ELISA, whatever it is. You can plug it, and from then on, already this agent can now ping other agents and kind of do mini commerce between each other to share information or pay each other services. And the step after is that the agent that came on the framework on Brahma from wherever, it can now instruct services to other agents and say, hey,
Yes.
do this for me. Take 10% of the user portfolio with the same security guarantees and manage it for me, because I can do more for very well, but you're super good at it. I'll pay you,
Yes.
X percent of my fees. That's the long-term vision,
Of
where
course, yeah.
we call it agentic protocols. Just means that you have these kind of mini protocols that are running by themselves. They can pay services and accrue value. They can access compute. They can ping each other as agents without any human intervention. That's like
That's
down the
very
line.
cool. Yeah.
That's what we
It is
see down
also
the line.
is natural, right? Because obviously right now we are deploying a capital to could be funds, services, and I think like human will deploy capital to AI agent treasuries. But I mean, obviously, the next level with that actually like agents are providing services for other agents in a more efficient way. So we will actually see agent deployments on their like on the treasury. That's actually really interesting. The cool thing is that with Brahma, you see also like different. You build your own sample agent you mentioned before, but also like you actually have also other agent in on Brahma. Like I just want to ask you, like, do you see any specific trends around agent builders right now? I mean, one thing I definitely see is that I definitely see much more push from like Web2 developers coming with Python strong backgrounds. They just want to do Python only specific frameworks. What are you seeing around frameworks, around kind of like challenges? Are we actually like welcoming Web2 developers more better on Web3 Rails? Any kind of trend that you see, this is something that is happening in the 6 months that we need to actually align.
I think what you mentioned on the Python example
Mm,
is actually there. Like we got a few of them asking us
you
for
see?
like Python
Yeah.
based, SDKs. Uh, Funnily, like most of our internal services, especially on the backend side execution, they're all in Go.
Mm,
And we had to quickly adapt and make a TypeScript SDK, literally like within the
mm,
first week of integrating the first partner I told you, which was kind of pilot launch, because dev said, hey, like, I don't want to touch this in Go. I want some TypeScript. And then we adapted pretty quickly. And now it's called the repo is all in TypeScript. And yeah, so one is like what you said, compatibility. Second thing we saw, which is a good and a bad thing, but let's say an agent builder has an idea for an agent. Okay, he's a competent dev, and he comes and says, hey, I'm really good, I'm using Claude and like fine tuning there, or like tinkering with it, or LangChain, and I want to make an agent that does stuff on chain. They kind of always want examples. So like we gave the repo that says you can plug in any model and framework, go ahead. But we had to build some scaffold, we call it scaffold agents, that people can take as a repo and literally clone and start from there with OpenAI, with LangChain, or else. Now we did one with NCP. It depends on what people ask. So you need to kind of guide them into giving them an example for a simple a simple first agent, and then they kickstart much faster. While we saw drop off when we didn't have this example, even though they aren't complex example, it's just that people need kind of a hand holding at the beginning.
mm,
And now we're getting question for tools and like how to adding certain tools, adding certain protocol paths without them coding it themselves, which is,
So
I guess,
abstraction tools,
always
right?
it's always the
Why?
beginning,
Because
correct?
the developers want to do like more vibe coding style of things because of the technical skills not being
Mm,
there, or why you think like developer experience optimization?
because like if you think of on-chain, this is even like web 2.5 devs, it's not even web 2, but imagine web 2 devs, they come and they say, oh, I would love to build an agent that takes money from your on-ramping with your Apple Pay and then kind of auto deploys it to earn yield and beats the treasuries, whatever. Let's say you want to build that. Now you say, oh, what are the good lending protocols I want to touch? It's, let's say, Aave Morpho Euler. Okay, now if Euler isn't mapped in the kit that you give to the developer, they can map it themselves and think, oh, this transaction on Euler should be abstracted in this function that my agent can call, correct? Like
Hmm.
supply.
Hmm.
But the chance that they would build it, because they come again from a path where they haven't built, let's say, DeFi integrations or on-chain integration, is slimmer. So we
Mm,
want to give them as much abstraction there. And many times they come and they say, hey, can you integrate this chain for me and this protocol path? And we say, yeah, we could. And we also added some solvers that would take away this part. But I guess that's an abstraction that is fully needed to go even Web 2. Eventually, you would just have to say, I want to call a lending function from my Web2 agent to deploy some of this capital into blue chip. And you are defining the abstraction of what's blue chip, what's a lending function. Do I make sense? Or it will be an agent, as we said, that they call, and you're calling the lending agent, which is built on Brahma, extra audited and runs well. And the Web2 agent just deploys to the lending agent instead of doing things themselves directly. So that's that. I would say the vibe coding part we're also discussing a lot
mhm.
because it would help us build a lot of examples. And so clearing up documentation, making it like better, like we're definitely not the best at this and we need more work. And yeah, I think that's important. And tools, how to build tools out initially with other devs and the team, so that people that come in with an idea can quickly get to market without having to build the tools themselves for the agent to
Okay,
call.
nice,
That's
nice. Is there something like that you see going in the direction that you will not like that much because it's actually putting extra work on maybe on the developer side or the infrastructure costs?
I
Or
think
mhm,
you have people devs that are tinkering with agents
yes,
are sometimes like solo devs that are very interested in AI, but they don't work at the company or the
hmm,
protocol that the agent would do stuff on. And then you have protocols that are interested in like exploring this frontier because it's very early, as you said, and there's also a lot of fluff,
hmm,
but they don't have maybe the development time or resources to do that, and they don't want to
hmm,
train the LLM themselves. They say, hey, I am happy to build like this the rails of how to interact with my protocol, or let's say a good logic, but then you have to make an agent out of it that has the reasoning. And matching these two things, like kind of builders and protocols and the infra, and
yes,
getting it up, it's like a fairly manual effort. Like I would say you are the best to think of that because you have been doing that for
yes,
years. I haven't. So that's what we miss, I think, a lot of like proper evangelizing and explaining how the things can work together, like protocols that have, let's say, users and size, and devs that have good idea for reasoning and agentic reasoning. And
hmm,
we meet many. I have some examples, but yeah, we meet many. And how do you mesh them together with the infra? Make sure
yes,
that the hard part is abstracted,
yes,
and yeah, and then they can expose it to users. And if users use it, then it's very easy to let an agent improve, or you as a dev to improve the
yes,
logic, especially when it's not evolved. So with Brahma or maybe other constructs, you can change the logic so flexibly, and the user just has to sign to approve a new version versus
yes,
me having to build a new smart contract integration for the new protocol that came out or the new pool and then audit it. Correct? That's the big unlock
yes,
that we think agents will need. Kind of this: we have the composability, we have the open source, but they will find new paths very quickly. You can't wait to build adapters in
yes,
smart, like in Solidity, and audit them.
yes.
And that's why the structure we built, we think, makes sense
I
for
like what
this.
I like what you said also on the distributing the agent to actually users. I think I want to definitely focus a lot on this part, and that's why kind of like Mother exists because we don't want to replicate what was in DeFi Summer with Dexes. Everybody was forking at the end. Like who got really ragged was a lot of those Dex users that were coming in the space and saying, "Hey, let's try this out and stuff." And if we don't want to replicate that, you need to build really social graphs around agents, building this kind of like full public registry of agents, and kind of like building reputation system around agents, so that even like if those agents will be on Brahma, you can actually like attest that these agents are actually creating value for a specific amount of like agent consumers, and those consumers
Mhm.
actually like know a little bit which metrics or know a little bit how is the agent useful, and it's not just a fork of the fork, right? And
And
mhm,
no, I was gonna say we
mhm,
get a lot of questions about like provability of the
yes,
model that is running the inference, or probability of the inference. But honestly, in terms of priority from the user ask or the devs, that's like a next step. It's more important to have this kind of like attestation that at the end, like the dev is selling you a service, correct? It's selling you an automated vault, which they say that will be sort of managed by a team or a risk manager, correct? Or it's selling you a bot, or it's selling you an agent, which is meant to be fully automated logic that was trained, but it's still selling a service. So you have to trust the dev. And as you said, like you need to have some sort of reputation and some sort of um, ways to show that this dev did his work on the logic. Whether it's a bot, it's manual, it's an agent, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the inference as much and which model was used, rather than the result and the operation it will do are actually real. It's like subscribing to a copy trading bot or a trading bot, correct? It's really hard to
yes,
tell that, oh, because the bot runs really in this instance, in this language, with this data source, that means it's a good bot. Same for an agent. It's more important to showcase that the agent performed well, that it didn't try to fuck with the policy on
hmm,
Brahma
hmm,
for long and try to like evade it.
yes,
These are the most important things, and that you make sure that when agent versions are updated, and the code is
yes,
updated, people know, and it's kind of, they have to approve things,
yes,
if it makes
yes.
sense.
No, it
Mm.
makes totally sense. Actually, I really like that part, and I think also Brown bring a lot of transparency and abstraction for agent builders. There is a lot of things that probably like has to be done. So what are you guys working? I know we are almost out of time. We definitely need to do some kind of like part two. So what kind of like coming around development? What you guys are cooking around Brahma that is kind of like relevant for agent builders? You touched a little bit on more abstraction on the architecture side.
Mhm.
What is happening there?
I mean, the most important thing, not the most important, but the way we built Brahma was for running our own accounts and
Mhm.
users using them, correct? So, like the execution system, the policy layer, these are built by Brahma and run by Brahma, correct? So that we can get a service that actually makes a really good live performance and product for the user. But this doesn't work in a future where you have agent builders that don't need to rely on Brahma as much, correct? Brahma should be the protocol to orchestrate things, but it shouldn't be like a middleman for certain parts. So one thing we're working towards is how do we open up the execution system of Brahma into nodes that other parties can run. So if you're building your agent and Brahma helps you with all the pieces, but maybe you don't want Brahma execution service to execute the transaction of your agent, correct? You want to have multiple nodes and you can choose the type of node and you will pay accordingly because maybe you need low latency or you don't care because you're doing weekly operations with your agent. So execution will be, we can call it decentralized, but we're not going for a chain style of nodes, but we do want a good set of high performance nodes that builders can choose to have their agents run with. Second, we're building a way so that the policy management is also not up to Brahma, right? We're not doing the off-chain plus on-chain verification and hashing every transaction that comes for an agent. It is a multitude of parties and it is secured in an on-chain way
Mhm.
with capital.
Yes.
And then we're building the first version of this shared knowledge graph where basically agents can post data to it and consume data from it, and how would transacting between these agents make sense.
Mhm.
And then, as we said, a lot of tooling, a lot of expansion on the tooling side.
Yes.
Those are, like, I would say, the main important things. And yeah, we make sure this becomes a full protocol rather than a builder infrastructure
No, I think
and
it
dev
will.
tooling.
Yeah, I mean, you
Mm.
guys have been shipping a lot. Like, I think we saw each other 6 months before Denver, and we were not definitely like there. And also, like with Denver, all these
Yeah.
updates. So you've been cooking a lot. So, last question. Like, what should builders be focusing on right now? So for everybody, this is kind of like hearing. Like, is there any kind of vertical of agent that you think this is where you need to go right now because there is a lack? Like, what do you think they should be, or they should just be focused more on the framework level? Where they need to contribute? What's your like some alphas out there?
It's a bit tricky because if you think of what's on chain and you want to build an on chain agent,
Mhm.
like DeFi and financial agents are still the king because there's liquidity, there's a lot of complexity. Like, as an example, we're big on Barachain, deployed there, have a lot of usage there. And like the amount of things you have to do on Barachain to like properly manage your yield or do things, there's a lot to abstract there. There's a lot of thinking or keeping track of things, governance, gauges,
Mhm.
bribes for proof of liquidity. These are things that honestly, like, even abstracting part of it and making it very easy, it would make a lot of sense. So I'm just saying, financial agents in DeFi,
Yeah.
it's like a fully open, there's nothing, correct? The only agents we saw are like very basic, as we said, like these social agents that then trigger some transactions. That's it. Not even AI expertise buying its own calls or coins that it tweets. So this is like the most basic thing of a financial agent, and there's so much potential to build already with what Brahma has, what other players might have live. And then we want to see people focus on the LLM and intelligence part of agents and kind of abstract as we said, the execution, the custody, the user onboarding. That's what we do, because we see a lot of people that have good ideas, but then they don't work enough on LLM logic for it to be more performant than a bot, or actually something that people would use and say, oh my God, this makes so much sense. So if I'm making sense, it's like, if you work on good reasoning logic and LLM tweaking, and you have good stack to execute on chain, just in DeFi, just financial, there's a lot to do. So this could be something for somebody that is looking, hey, I want to ship something that people can touch in the next month or weeks. That's the opportunity. If you look longer term, I think connecting Web 2 and Web 3 has a lot of potential as well. And we need to show, especially to Web 2, why would agents want to come on chain. And there's, again, financial part is an important thing,
Mhm.
personal finances and savings and programmatic management of finances is good. And then there's the payment part with, kind of borderless payment and stable coins. I think there's a lot to do. And I think these are the shorter term opportunities. The long term is going to be agent to agent logic,
Yes.
and coordination on chain, accessing compute on chain, and making fully sovereign agents,
Yes.
like Freza are doing. We're going towards there. But I think if we just focus on that today, it wouldn't make as much of a difference than focusing on making agents, first of all, some agents that make sense and people interact with and say, oh, wow, this actually helped me a lot.
Yes.
That's the first step.
I mean, you dropped a lot of like knowledge in literally the last like 1 minute. I think that a lot of people really appreciate the like also the amount of knowledge here being shared is great for what, like a 40 minutes live stream. So thank you so much. I mean, Ale, to come to the stream. I think it was super useful. We definitely need to do a part two. And thanks
Sure.
all for listening to this. If there are like, any links that you want to share also, Ale, like we will share it also like with the community afterwards. And thanks
Yes.
everyone for watching. I think there is a lot of innovation happening around Brahma. You guys are abstracting. You're also creating like this kind of like tooling suite for those agents coming next. There is a lot of like things happening, and I think by ECC you will have a lot of like more news to happen. I think that's
We can do a good catch up there.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a good
yes,
time.
yes. Sounds good. Let's do it.
Awesome.
So, and for everybody's watching, also like the model project is officially launched. Also, like if you're building cool agents, you wanna either present, just kind of like shilling it out. There is a full channel that you can actually post some of those agents, and we should definitely speak Brahma on with Brahma on kind of like the accessibility on the social graphs and reputation. I think that's a good idea. And thanks again. Thanks everyone also like coordinating this space. After Denver, we made it happen, a lot of things, and it was great to actually like having this session, Ale. Okay, thanks so much for this, and see you guys in Discord or ECC next. Awesome. Thanks, Ale.